Reverend Turpin, how did your food drive go the other week?
Fantastic. Really fantastic. On Thursday, we had 126 boxes,
Oh, beautiful.
and it took less than 2 hours.
Is that right?
And
Wow.
then Friday, we had 76 boxes, and they went within 15 minutes.
Is that right? Holy, that's terrific. That's terrific to get that out there. And that's a lot of work for a 15-minute distribution.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Well worth it, right? Well worth it.
Yes. On March the 3rd, Tuesday, March 30th, we're going to have 500 boxes, and we're opening it up to, you're going to be hearing more about it. We're going to open it up to everyone, whoever needs.
Nice. Very nice.
All right,
So-
click on Zoom. Can you hear us okay in here?
I can hear you.
I can
Okay,
hear.
we're gonna get rolling then. We're waiting on the public safety chair. He's having a little difficulty getting in, but we'll get started. Just so you guys are aware, we are live to our YouTube channel as well as in person here in the county office building with some of our committee members and board members on Zoom. So I would like to welcome everyone to this special Public Safety Committee meeting for March 10th, 2021. The purpose of this meeting is going to be to review the draft Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Report. It's an open meeting, and it's also live streamed to our Greene County YouTube channel. The Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Committee has been invited to join the Greene County Legislature to answer any questions the legislature may have regarding the recommendations. And most of them are doing so by Zoom. We do have KBO that's here with us. The draft report was made available to the public on Tuesday, March 2nd, where it was loaded on the county website. Per the governor's executive order, the legislature is required to take public comment on the draft plan and either adopt or ratify the draft. Adoption of the plan by resolution of this legislature at its regularly scheduled meeting on March 17th, along with the plan certification form, is required to be submitted to the New York State Division of Budget on or before April 1st, 2021. And before the legislature begins its deliberations here, I would like to take a moment just to recognize the PRRC and thank them for the incredible work they've done on behalf of the Greene County Legislature. They spent many hours working with the Greene County Sheriff, the County Administrator, and the county staff to produce a comprehensive, well-documented draft report. This was a big lift. It's not an easy task, given the state's time limitations and the COVID restraints. The Greene County Legislature would also like to recognize this committee represented a diverse range of experiences and perspectives, and a common commitment to working with the Greene County Sheriff's Office to address challenges and support its strengths, including institutions and organizations supporting education, business, religion, as well as not-for-profit agencies. So thank you for your time, your commitment, and your hard work. I think the report really showed how much went into this. In conversations that I had with the sheriff and the county administrator, I would like to share how impressed they were with the committee's work. Quickly coming up to speed on the operations of the sheriff and their daily interactions with service providers in our county was an important and necessary task. Evaluating what was successfully working in our community and staying focused on Greene County, not other communities, was necessary before any recommendations for improvement could be made. There were hundreds of documents reviewed and presentations provided on how law enforcement operates within Greene County and their interaction with the county's mental health and substance abuse agencies. This plan was created with extensive opportunities for community involvement and received the full attention and support of the Greene County Sheriff and his staff. Committee met a total of 10 times from September 2020 through February of 2021. 3 public forums were held in multiple locations to obtain the public's vital input. In addition, the county created a special website landing page for this project where the public provided comments through an online portal. Comments through an online portal throughout the process. All comments were provided to the PRRC as part of their task. The Greene County Legislature has also been provided with the public comments as well as detailed minutes that they were taking up every meeting. Don't know if we have something on yet. Wait. So we'll go ahead and get started on the Special Public Safety Committee meeting at 6:07. I'm not on yet, but we can open this up to the board. I know this report was sent out to us last week. Everybody would have a chance to take a look at it, look through the recommendations that will be made by this committee. And of course, the committee is here. If we have any questions for them, so if anybody has anything they'd like to raise, we'll give you time. Or do you have any questions? What here is, we have the draft in front of us. Next week, we'll do a resolution on what's going to be accepted, so we can accept the draft as it's written. We can modify what's in the draft. We can add or remove things from the draft to make a final report that will be done by resolution and then sent to the state.
When is the timeline? When does it have to be submitted to the state?
Has to be on or before April 1st.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to reaffirm what you said. The work of the committee, amount of work, the meetings that the county administrator organized and the work of the committee, I would like to say thank you very much. It's quite an undertaking. Report very long. So thank you.
Yeah, I would concur. I've seen several reports now that have come out of other municipalities, whether they were counties or villages or towns in the state. This is a professional job that was done by volunteers. I think it wound up probably a lot more time and effort that they wound up volunteering for than what maybe they signed up for, but we did have one member that had to be changed out somewhere in the middle, but other than that, everybody stuck with it and stuck to the task. And you know that I thought the report was very well done. Well out.
I agree, and thank you to Warren and his staff too for putting the final pieces together and really look perfect.
Have any questions from the board on any of the 25 recommendations that were there? We can look at a sort. The only thing that I think is going to take a little more consideration going forward, because it's a pretty large budget item, is going to be the body cameras. I disagree with the notion of having them, but it's going to be a significant expense that I don't think we can guarantee today that it's going to happen in a week or something like that. It's going to take a little bit of time, I think, to get through that procurement process, policy process for it.
There are no grants out there for something like that.
Well, we can look at that and see if there are. You're looking at not only the cameras themselves, the software system that will handle that data, and then you're going to have somebody that's going to be able to download and maneuver that data on a daily basis. Get what the district attorney's office may need for discovery and those sort of things. So it's definitely got some budget implications there. I think the rest of them were fairly small as far as the budget end of things go. They're more policies, some of which we already have in place. Others are new.
My understanding that the body cams that are recommended, so to see, that's the ultimate, that's the best money can buy. There are other systems that are not going to be
I think the vendor selection process is probably wide open.
Yeah.
We haven't-
But I mean, there's different systems.
Oh, I would, maybe I might defer to the sheriff, who may know more about it than I do.
There are multiple. Truck cameras and body camera and drone cameras. I think it's got the car automatically. There's no chance of it not working, not touching. Yeah, all. Those are captured.
Sheriff, some of the trainings that you have your department do, are these nationally certified trainings or state certified? State certified.
Some
You speak up, Pete?
most of them are state certified, some are not.
So the trainings, if they're state certified, national certified, they are, you assume, approaching on some of the areas of concern on police reform?
And let me go through and just kind of give a brief overview on each one of these recommendations. That way, if there's any, it was over a week ago when we first got this, so it took some time to get through it. Obviously, there's a preamble there as far as what the committee was tasked with. And I went through that 132-page document that came to the state on the guidance for this. It looked pretty overwhelming on at face value. I think they did a great job here. But when we get into the committee's findings and recommendations, I will say before this draft report was sent to the board, it was drafted ahead of time and given back to the committee to make sure that the committee had a general consensus on what was being put forward. So they were able to agree or dissent as far as whether things were going to go forward for the board. And this is what came from the majority on that committee. So the first recommendation here, the committee concluded the Greene County Sheriff's Office well staffed and trained with appropriate budget and equipment required to best serve our communities. Moving forward, the committee recommends that GCSO continue to bring requests for additional programs and funding for public safety committee to the Greene County Legislature for review and action. Pretty simple recommendation there. If this board would have any issue with any of that. Recruiting and supporting excellent personnel. 2 recommendations. Recruiting efforts should be expanded to include other venues such as job fairs, school outreach programs, social media announcements, community gathering places in minority neighborhoods of places with people of color. And in conjunction with recruiting and job postings, Greene County Sheriff's Office should also provide guidance and support to prospective applicants, especially persons of color and women who may wish to serve. Everybody's good with those 2? On training and education, committee recommended that Greene County Sheriff's Office continue the successful completion of their recurring continuous training, enabling it to meet or exceed the standards established by Law Enforcement Agency Accreditation Council, especially in the areas of anti-bias, de-escalation, harassment, and use of force training, which they currently do, all of which are part of the recent accreditation the Sheriff's Office received by that council as well. The 5th recommendation, the committee recommends Greene County Sheriff's Office continue to emphasize that policing is a partnership with the community, requiring a foundation of positive, trust-based relationships with all segments of the population. The committee concluded that Greene County Sheriff's Office provides its officers with training programs that allow it to both perform its mission, accomplish its goal of feeding the city, while treating its citizens with dignity, honor, and respect. We expect nothing less. Number 6, the committee recommended that the county sheriff's office consider communicating and coordinating its training programs and opportunities with the 7 local municipal police departments. We did include them in our committee here. They were invited to attend. I believe all the police departments did attend and were able to speak with the committee. And that's kind of based off a theory that you want cohesive policies across the county, regardless of who winds up responding to a call. While the committee understands that local participation cannot be mandated, it believes in value in uniform and consistent training for all law enforcement agencies operating within the county, especially since the closest car response policy results in local, county, or state agencies to be first on the scene of a reported incident. Number 7, and this is one that I would wholeheartedly agree with. It was definitely a concern that I saw in a couple of public meetings that I went to as a public member. The committee recommends that the troopers serving Greene County be held to the same high standards as the Greene County Sheriff's Office, and that the governor mandate that New York State Police conduct the same reform and reinvention exercise as required by the local agencies. They respond to about 40% of the calls in this county, and I know I heard more than one handful of complaints or concerns that came from the public during this committee's deliberation processes in the public sector. So I don't think anybody would have a disagreement there. And we'll make that.
Question. So you're saying that New York State Police responds 40% of calls
Roughly
in the county. Now the sheriff responds to how many percentage of the sheriff?
about 40.
40 of the town, the village, 20, roughly. I have to agree with you on that.
There were people who came in and laid some concerns out. They had valid concerns, but their concerns were geared toward the New York State Police. And this committee and this legislature can't do anything to change their policies or even that change going forward for them. It has to have to come from the state side. And that was the recommendation of the committee. How did the state police go through this same type of operation? Supporting officer mental health and well-being. Recommendation number 8 was the committee recommended that the Greene County Sheriff's Office continue to utilize all available support resources to support the mental health and well-being of its officers, as well as with implementation of the Helping Every Responder Overcome Resilience program. That's the HEROES program. This program is not currently complete and does not exist within the Greene County Sheriff's Office, but training will begin in May or June of this year. So again, that's an initiative that the Sheriff's Office had begun to undertake when this directive came down. There'll be a continuation going forward. Make sure that our own officers are fit for duty mentally. Employing smart and effective policing standards and strategies. The committee recommended that the Greene County Sheriff's Office prioritize procuring new RMS software that will collect and record data to include how often arrests come from observed violations versus responses to a service call, and provide a clear breakdown of arrests by ethnicity and gender. If I remember correctly, or anybody on the committee, or if I remember right, the discussions around that was a lot of that information was not dictated off of the state reports.
There was a lot of confusion with the incident-based reporting and uniform crime reporting versus what's collected in our records management system. The current one is obsolete, not supported by DCJS anymore. So those skills are there, but they're not searchable to us. There's no support for it. Actually, we will, the plan is, the recommendation was, when the person was able to collect that search, that's that.
And the committee also recommends that New York State provide funding for updated local RMS platforms, as this will advance the governor's goals to reduce racial disparity. On the community engagement side, the committee recommended Green County Sheriff's Office should seek opportunities to enhance their community outreach and presence at events, functions, and public housing, demonstrating that Green County Sheriff's Office is approachable and serves the community in addition to its law enforcement duties. Number 12, the committee recommended that the Green County Sheriff's Office continue to maintain this school resource officer program, as many Green County schools, in as many Green County schools as possible. The programs and services provided by the Green County Sheriff's Office to the school district are a great success and have overwhelming support of school administrators, teachers, parents, and frequently the students themselves. The committee also recommended that Green County create a youth program to partner with and enhance the efforts of local youth groups and clubhouses, religious organizations, and town and village art and recreation programs. While events and activities would be organized by specific local groups, sponsored and supported by Green County, small grants and transportation resources, and coordinated under a Healthy Communities message from the Green County Sheriff's Office and other not-for-profits such as Green County Health Consortium. A little bit more there than just the Green County Sheriff's Office, but a recommendation here nonetheless. In transitioning arrested and incarcerated individuals back into communities, a couple of recommendations. We recommended the Green County justice system continue to expand the drug court program as an alternative to incarceration, and further explore the possible creation of a law enforcement assisted diversion program for Green County. I believe the sheriff had begun to look into this when COVID hit before the executive order, but that is a recommendation here as well. Number 15, the committee recommended the sheriff appoint a local faith leader as chaplain for the Green County Jail, and with Reverend Richard Turpin of the Second Missionary Baptist Church in Catskill be advanced for consideration. Hearing no complaints from the Reverend. In responding to mental health events, the committee recommended that the Green County Sheriff's Office continue its current policies as they are in accordance with best practices and serve our communities well. The committee also recommended that the Green County Sheriff's Office continue to work in consort with the mobile crisis team on all mental health events and continue ongoing training in the de-escalation practices and techniques. The committee recognizes that MCAT is not dedicated only to Greene County. This occasionally causes delays in moving from one crisis to another due to the geography of calls, which is often frustrating for both law enforcement and emergency services. MCAT's hours of operation are only 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., leaving 10 hours with no in-person crisis coverage available. MCAT offers a warm line for emergency mental health calls. To ensure that mental hygiene, domestic violence, trauma, or abuse-related calls are followed up by appropriate service providers, the committee recommends examining funding opportunities to support having a dedicated team to provide responses specific to Greene County. For 18, the committee also recommends that the Greene County Sheriff's Office should report all relevant incidents to the overdose detection mapping application program to ensure that spike alerts are issued and all appropriate agencies can respond in a timely manner, providing supports and education to Greene County reducing overdose fatalities. That's something that's come a long way in the last year or so. As far as the timeliness, we've always been behind the 8 ball, and that system seems to be much more responsive, almost up to the minute. So we'll work it there. And fostering community-oriented leadership, culture, and accountability. The committee recommends that there be a continuation of open and honest discussions between the community and Greene County Sheriff's Office. The committee also recommends that the community organizations need to take responsibility for positive interactions with police agencies by partnering with the Greene County Sheriff's Office moving forward and structure community programs that include the sheriffs. And that's, the way I read that, it's basically a continuation of what we just went through, and just to continue that on an ongoing basis to improve the system. Tracking and reviewing use of force and identifying misconduct. Committee recommends that persons seeking access to any Greene County Sheriff's Office discipline reports file a FOIL request with the Greene County Attorney, FOIL officer, by following the directions that are on the county website under the Freedom of Information request.
Number 21, that's the code.
I see that. Committee recommends that the Greene County Sheriff's Office continue to use its current practices regarding the incidents involving use of force. I know that was a pretty significant discussion as well, not only for the Sheriff's Office, with all the other towns that have towns and villages, I should say, with the police departments. They kind of all went through their policies and what they already have in place seems to be working. On the citizen oversight and other external accountability, the committee recommends that Greene County publicize all methods available, including contacting the sheriff, contacting the Greene County legislator, contacting the New York State Attorney General, and using the Greene County Sheriff's Office mobile app. And this is for any complaints that may be brought forward to the Sheriff's Office. The committee also recommends the creation of a volunteer community advocate committee to facilitate any citizen complaints regarding the Greene County Sheriff's Office. The three-person committee will include either the chair of the Greene County Legislature or its Public Safety Committee, and two citizens, one from a faith-based organization, the other leading community outreach. This committee will include one or more persons of color. The Community Advocate Committee will receive complaints anonymously through a form on the Greene County website. Vet each submission for legitimacy and bring it to the Greene County Sheriff's Office directly for investigation and resolution. This process will minimize any perceived fear of retaliation that may exist in some citizens. Data technology and transparency. Greene County, the committee recommends that the county administrator bring this request before the Public Safety Committee for referral to the full body of the Greene County Legislature for action to provide the Greene County Sheriff's Office and the community with accurate, unbiased audio-visual record of enforcement-related law enforcement interaction. That's in relation to cameras. The whole language there. Compliance. The draft report goes, those are the 25 recommendations. As I said, there were some dissenting opinions there. It was from the committee themselves. That keeps the discussion honest. We had, so at this point, does anybody in the legislature have any questions on any of this? A lot of it is things that it will take some time to get the policies developed. The Community Advocate Committee, those sort of things will take a little bit of time. The body cameras, obviously, a large budget ticket item, and having to go out to that big process will take a little bit of time. But I don't think any of us disagree with the recommendation of looking into those possibilities. We're going to put it up to the floor. Anybody from the board?
Well, again, I think it was well thought out, planned. I appreciate the work of the committee. I also appreciate that we included faith-based leaders on the committee as well. That's been important to me. I think without God in this whole situation, it's not a place for us to go. And, I appreciate their input. I would further, continue to say what you're saying, Chairman, defer to the sheriff regarding the body cameras and whatever we need to do to support him I would be definitely in full support of that.
Also, I think it's important to point out the sheriff that we have. He's a community person. He's out in the community daily. He goes to organizations, he talks, makes speeches, which is an important part, obviously, of the sheriff's department and where he's brought this department with accreditation. I think that's very, very important to talk about also. So he is always reachable to talk about issues. That's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. The sheriff, the undersheriff, Captain Quinn, Lieutenant Overbroad, they're all out in the community. They're very approachable. They're always willing to talk or listen.
That's important.
It's very important. I think probably the members on this committee probably learn a lot about the criminal justice system and how it operates in Greene County. That was by necessity to come up with this. You did a great job at it.
Lynn, did you have the listings? No.
All right, if we're good with the board, then I will open this up to public comments. We do have the police reform plan member correspondence from the committee members. We also have questions that were submitted to the Greene County website, and that was from the inception in September all the way through last week here or this week. We had an email from Anna Christina Arcos, as well as the email from Hillary Polos. I'm not sure if that one was from the website or not, but I know we got it in an email. I believe Bell, you here? If you would, come on up here to the front. I mean, come up to the front and you'll probably have to yell.
I'll do my best. So first, I appreciate you considering my comments. My name is Elodie, and I'm a full-time resident of Jewett. To begin, a quick quote from Patrick Linger. Is that you?
Yeah.
The time limitations and social restraints are complicated further by the fact that approximately 40% of all law enforcement calls within Greene County are responded to by the New York State Police, who is not required to be involved in this effort. This quote demonstrates a few things that I'll be talking about. The pressure of time limitation was self-imposed due to a very late start. Safe community outreach and tools like video conferencing were not properly utilized for participation. And deflection citing that state police workload has anything to do with complicating the process of facilitating the conversation with the community or collecting feedback that is relevant to our community. There are two other common deflections we were met with in discussing police reform. Why were you not involved earlier? We were. Why didn't you communicate back with us? I've been here for X amount of decades, and this isn't an issue. This is not a problem in the rural area. But it's not true. A negative experience and dealing with the police does exist here with both residents and visitors. This was made clear in the Hunter survey, for example, despite not having formal complaints. No survey was done with the county. Just because this hasn't been your experience or the experience of others that look like you or that are in your bubble does not make other experiences right here in our county invisible or less than. And quite frankly, the concerns of those disproportionately impacted who you should be listening to, you aren't because you didn't talk to anyone. And public meetings, first safe and welcoming meetings to ensure safe settings for participation by reluctant community members was not something that was reckoned with despite our calls. And not just worry about retaliation from the police or not getting the same service, but retaliation within the community itself, which was apparent from the Back the Blue parade in the Black Lives Matter parade in Kennersville and the Ashland Town meeting regarding thin blue line flags that resulted in violent and racist posts on social media. The governor's work with the state. The Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative was designed to enable all members of the community to participate in reimagining the role of law enforcement. Your process will not be successful if it simply recreates the current functions, strategies, and operations of the police department without deep and probing consideration of the perspectives of those who seek reform. Further, the chief executive must certify that the community was engaged in this process. I am going to speak to how this process failed and the community has not been engaged. That is why my request is that the draft currently submitted to this legislature should not be accepted, and we must do this again in a way that is accessible, equitable, and transparent. If you choose to move forward with this, despite what I'm saying, I am requesting that a public meeting be set within the next week to discuss amendments and recommendations that should be included in this draft, such as additional de-escalation training, bias training by a community-approved source that's in person and not a computer-prompted program, the standard public yearly release of complaints and disciplinary actions of Greene County police officers, including standard practices of evaluating moral character on and off duty as well as on social media, the furnishing of a business card at every interaction that states the officer's badge number, department, and where to submit complaints to a neutral civilian review board, the adoption of Campaign Zero's use of force policy. The beginning of the plan should also be amended to clearly state the known deficiencies of this process and for the county to formally adopt to do this exercise over for delivery prior to the next budget allocation. I, along with the community advocacy and education group Anti-Racist Task Skills, would like to volunteer to help Greene County facilitate and network them properly for a valid shared plan for 2022 that more accurately represents those that seek reform, highlighting and elevating the feedback from residents and visitors with emphasis on folks that are Black, Indigenous, people of color, immigrants, women, low income, and incarcerated individuals that have not been brought into the Greene County discussion. Let me preface the rest of this by saying, while this may not have been the committee's desire or intent, I don't think this was malicious. It doesn't change the factual outcome or result. And if there were skills or know-how missing from the committee to facilitate this process, especially during COVID, they chose not to seek out help, support, or expertise from big things like getting real community involvement to little things like how to hold and run a video content. One, the draft was only made available last week, and I'm still not clear what the plan was to incorporate the limited community feedback prior to presenting it to the legislature. For example, I, for one, clearly stated to a committee member that the FOIL process for complaint discipline records is not an acceptable solution. I have tried and failed multiple times to do this, and I'm told I'm not asking correctly, there is not adequate staffing, my request is too cumbersome. I wanted to have a formal record for the past 5 years of complaints and discipline for town patrol officers. There are 70 folks that fit this, which is not many. And if there are no complaints, then this should hardly take a long time. But we should all be asking, why was this not already requested by the committee and available to the committee or for the accreditation process? Doesn't this already exist? How is a difficult process like this transparent and accessible? I proposed potential solutions, but they aren't in this draft. 2, the community was not engaged in this process or properly notified. The process was not transparent, and the sentiments expressed by reform committee members that 1, they were only doing this because they were being made to. 2, that this topic isn't of concern here, that this is an urban problem, not a rural problem. It was clearly expressed also that certain things were being included in this draft report, specifically in the appendices, to quell the expressed discontent with complaints and to prove that a good job was done. These things don't look or feel great in proving this was a genuine process or are available in minutes for you to read. An example of that third point, including website analytics trying to illustrate that lots of people went on the website. But it actually only furthers to prove my point. In a county of nearly 50,000 people, only 12 devices access the system. This does not indicate good performance. Page views is not a viable metric in this analysis. One person can view the page 100 times, and if the same person used the page from 2 different devices, they will show 2 unique visitors. So 2 unique visitors on each of those pages was me. And at least 1 unique visitor is someone staffed by the county. And how many committee members looked at these pages? But I digress. Great. The process was started very late. There was not adequate advance notification and generally poor and non-existent outreach. The executive order for the development of a police reform plan was given on June 12th, yet the work did not begin. The workbook with 125 pages of detailed guidance was issued on August 8th, yet the work did not begin. In fact, the first public meeting was not held until the middle of October. There were only 3 public meetings, relatively close together, all with hardly any notification and difficult to find info, and by and large not designed for safe public discussion and discourse with how the meetings were held. One with all the police forces of local jurisdictions present, one with many coordinating agencies that work with police, and instances of attendees, including uniformed officers not wearing masks. The meetings also were all held on this side of the country. The committee didn't consider who is my audience. Where would they be able to best see the information I provide? A single Facebook post or blurry links on a website with half information will not have reach in Greene County. More successful advertising is done with free and simple signage for garage sales and chicken barbecues than for this important issue. This also highlights why any ideas in the draft that don't include details of a robust outreach plan should be amended to have one for each point. The meeting we are having right now is another example of deficiency. A video conference is not being held for the public, and I'm highly uncomfortable with having to be present for this while the committee can Zoom safe at home. And information about this meeting was not adequately supplied on a website that's not user-friendly. There was missing information, not complete information in each section where the information was needed. And including on the event page for tonight, police reform was not included in the title of this meeting, which confused people with all the public safety. Limited participants from the public meetings also all had the expectation set for there to be additional public discussions with the committee as things develop, but that never happened. Our correspondences, calls, comments, emails went without communication for months until we took it upon ourselves to aggressively try and get our voices heard, including escalating Michelle Hinsey's office, which is ultimately what prompted phone calls to us in just the past 2 weeks. For the committee, who did you engage? How did you engage them? Where is the documentation? Was the budget analyzed? No. How is spend on cameras being done without considering this budget? And shouldn't the community be involved in that discussion? The budget is not included in the review in this draft. There are needs of the community that may be better met if funding was budgeted in correct areas. Having a doctor in Greene County, more affordable housing, public transportation, mentorship, education, and training programs. These things absolutely would have been debated and discussed if folks were brought to the table. In conclusion, the deadline means nothing if this process was not carried out correctly and the plan does not reflect a shared vision. This exercise was not about the county or committee taking it solely upon themselves deciding if the police are doing a good job, as is. We're trying to tick the boxes for bare minimum participation to have something to submit as to not jeopardize funding. Certifying that the community was engaged in this process and draft with the spirit intended in the governor's order would not be truthful or ethical. In a county of nearly 50,000 residents and millions of visitors, our residents were not brought to the table. My town board wasn't even given the heads up. And the most important feedback and ideas to highlight and request were missing. You should ask yourself why. Thank you.
Next one I have on the list is Stephen Nash Weber. Thank you.
Is there a way to turn the mic on so the committee members that are on can hear better?
Not doable?
No.
All right. I'll speak up.
There you go.
There we go. I do want to reiterate the points that were made by Elodie. Those were extremely well founded, and we have spent as a group a great deal of time looking at this process that's being carried out across the county and even some of the communities further abroad that are still impacted, that we interact with as a community. Where the critiques that she and I have brought forward before, and again today, are completely valid, I would like to spend my time looking at the recommendations that are made here and some modifications that are appropriate to make this more effective under its scheme. In terms of recommendation 23, many communities have committed to all officers carrying and distributing at all interactions cards that contain their name, their badge number, and that platform for feedback. Right? We're talking about having this CAC, being able to receive that feedback. I would like to make sure that every individual who interacts with the Greene County Sheriff's Office know explicitly about that platform. We need, where we have seen issues with this committee's ability to gather feedback from the community, there is no better way of getting good data and feedback from the community in all police interactions than that scheme. So I would please ask that we modify or specify that there is a standard operating procedure of issuing those cards at all interactions. I'd also like to bring mention to the letter at the end of the draft report from Mr. Kai Hillman. He brings up the question of culture. Several police forces have, or committees have looked at this, and it is, in my opinion, imperative that we have a police force that we can trust as having the highest moral code. And while there's great evidence that that does exist to a degree, there is also some evidence that there are failings in that regard. And this can limit our ability to make sure that we have a truly diverse workforce, but also that we have a workforce free of damaging bias. So I would ask that that be addressed, that the social media and organizational affiliations of the members of the Greene County Sheriff's Office be scrutinized to make sure that they are upholding at all times our shared community values and the value of every member of the community. On recommendation 2, I would suggest that we look at a targeted mentorship program where we make sure that any disadvantaged populations who show any interest in becoming members of the Greene County Sheriff's Office or any police office, law enforcement office, be as a standard protocol paired up with members of the service to help them get through the process of applying for that work through the civil service exam, etc. Targeted mentorship. I would like to reiterate Ellie's point regarding money. We saw, though we requested, no handling in this report as to the budget of the sheriff's office, the staffing levels of this office, and how they are appropriate for our community. It is, as a result, completely unclear that we have the correct number of members serving in the sheriff's office, and that is not evaluated against the staffing levels of the many other agencies that are in the county, including the state police, towns, etc. So we have very little ability to evaluate, given that we are at correct staffing levels, and that we are not over-policed or under-policed. I feel like this is a substantial deficit in the work. We also asked for a explanation of how we are different as a sheriff's office from the national standard of law enforcement. As it stands right now, the national standard of law enforcement produces an alarmingly high number of fatal outcomes. We have not addressed in this report how that exists as a lower risk for us than elsewhere in any quantitative or qualitative aspect. And that needs to be addressed, as it poses a substantial risk to all community members, not just the individual who may suffer specifically, but from the social trust and economic prospects of our community. Related to that, we asked that we look at what framework for accountability exists for excessive force and excessive violence on the part of our police officers. It is clear in the national scheme that when incidents occur, a failure to have a robust program of accountability causes greater unrest and distrust among the community. We must make sure that in our programs, we have a clear plan on how to address incidents that are contrary to the public trust. I'd like to highlight or ask that the board look at a specific procurement plan for the RMS system. I guess it's a question more than anything else. Chairman Linger, can you tell me whether or not, or when we would expect a upgraded RMS system to be procured, and what the timeline for that, given this committee's work?
I can't give you a timeline right now. We will not only look into grant funding to do that, but also partner with the rest of the state. Same thing. I couldn't give you an answer on it right now. It will take, I mean, we have procurement procedures. We can't just go out and just one says, I can't wait a PO tomorrow.
Understood. I guess my point was I want to make sure it's a priority and that we can imagine that we have a commitment out of this report and our resolution that's coming in to, for example, within a year, have that procurement complete.
I would, well, I guess that would depend on manufacturing these types of things. I don't know how long it takes to get them, but I think the decision could be made by this board to advance the purchase of that type of thing. I don't have a.
In our survey of law enforcement agencies, you know, we have looked at the investment in IT has been an issue, and this appears to be another one that really does impact the performance of the
I can assure you it will be a priority.
Thank you.
In this report as a recommendation that is adopted probably next week. They will be priorities.
I would also like to, I'd like to tack on to Mr. Hillman's note on page 20 regarding recommendation 20 in this bold framing. I strongly suggest that we alter the framing of that resolution or recommendation. Suggest that the sheriff welcomes the opportunity to participate with community organizations rather than that a demand on the committee's part that we take responsibility for positive interaction. I would definitely like to wrap up by saying that I really do appreciate the amount of work that was done. This is really a lot of work. And I don't want to detract from that to our critiques. Our critiques are valid, but I do want to commend them for getting as far as they got and make a further recommendation that this become a standing order of business that continues. That this CAC not only maybe grow from the 3 members that are recommended to something more robust, but they are funded and give resources to continue to follow up on the performance of the sheriff's office and pursue these analyses that we have missed in this cycle. We acknowledge that time is limited. We are human. We get as far as we can get. But we are highlighting here a substantial amount of remaining work to be done. And we ask that you make this a permanent one. Again, thank you all for your time, and I really do appreciate everything you've done. The sheriff in particular has been really stellar with a lot of the moves that have been made so far. We are seeing record performance already occurring. We just would like to see the remaining parts taken care of. Thank you. Thank you.
Third one I have on the list is Monica Kenny-Keff.
My problem isn't necessarily being too quiet, it's being too loud. So let me know. I am an attorney, I'm used to being very loud.
This room is difficult for the people on Zoom to hear from, so that's why.
I'll keep it up as best I can. Just in response to these 2 community members that have just spoken, I would like to give a little bit of the flip side to that. Many of the objections that we just heard were about items that could not be dealt with in what the limited scope of this committee was. There were many items that could not be accessible to these committee members. The budget was not something that the sheriff's department or this committee had any control over. The Greene County budget is dealt with in this body. There are recommendations for further expenditures. However, those expenditures, this legislative body has to answer to the taxpayers of Greene County for. It's not as if money is on trees, as the saying goes, that we can just pick it off to get the body cams or the car cameras. With respect to the publishing of the public hearings and the request for community involvement, there were 3 in-person public hearings. I attended all of them. They were not all in the same place. You can't, unfortunately, force people to come. You can't force people to be engaged. There were availabilities to the website to send in comments from the public. It was well published. That was how I knew about where to go, how to get involved, and how to listen. The governor put out this workbook, as Melody just indicated, on August 8th. And Greene County had their organizational meeting on September 30th. They had to find the volunteers. So the volunteers of this committee, who should be praised to the fullest extent, they had to find them prior to their organizational meeting. They were at the organizational meeting. Minutes of every meeting, as you could tell, she's here today. She was taking down every word. As fast as people were talking, she didn't miss a beat. Those minutes can be read, they can be reread, then commented on through the website, through an email, through an anonymous letter to this board. And again, you can't force people to engage if they don't want to. This was part of the discussion in one of the minutes. It was with respect to getting more people to apply to the sheriff's department. You can't go and grab people off of the street and force them to apply. The information is available. The sheriff and the committee all spoke about re-engaging the community, trying to get and actively recruiting. But at the same time, we're in a pandemic, we're in a hiring freeze. You can only do so much. You still can't put pen to paper for these applicants. And I believe that the community does have a responsibility. They have a responsibility to the sheriff's department just as much as the sheriff's department has a responsibility to the community. The community has a responsibility to listen as well as speak to the sheriff. The sheriff's department has a responsibility to listen and also speak. We're not trained sheriff's officers. We're not trained police officers. There are certain things that I am never going to know about being a police officer or a deputy. That's why I have to be able to listen. There are certain things that a deputy or a sheriff may never know about being pulled over or having an interaction with police. That's why they need to be able to listen. The community and the sheriff's department have a responsibility to each other to learn from each other and to listen to each other and change when change is necessary. But again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. This, in all of the public hearings that I went to, almost every person started with, I never had a problem with the sheriff, or I've never had a problem with a deputy, but here are my concerns. We are Greene County. We are limited to listening to the Greene County community members. We're limited to recommendations with respect to the Greene County Sheriff's Department in this particular instance. I sat on the committee for the Town of Carroll Police Department. We were limited to listening to issues with respect to the Carroll Police Department. And we made some changes, and there are many excellent changes that are set forth. The accreditation is amazing. It's something that I know that the sheriff started as soon as he took office. The Town of Carroll Department actually, with permission, I believe, adopted the Greene County Sheriff's chokehold policy as one of their policies. So there is progress being made. You can't fix everything overnight, but I have to say, and I said it in the first public hearing, I think we're extremely lucky here in Greene County. We have a wonderful Greene County Sheriff's Department that is open to the community, that is open to anything that will help the community, not just policing the community. So the community has to be ready to help as well. In this draft report, the biggest thing is, to me, that they're keeping the line of communication open. So no, I don't believe that we are done here. I don't believe the sheriff thinks that we're done here. I think this is a continuing conversation. It's just that the governor's office required this and requires this report to be on their desk by April 1st, or funding not just for police departments and sheriff's departments, but for towns and counties in other areas, is shut off. So this isn't simply we're going through the motions. This is since before September, these committee members have been doing their best to listen and to engage. We're not here about national policing. We're not here about the standard narrative that we're hearing. We're here specifically to the Greene County Sheriff's Office. I commend the committee on the massive amount of work that they did, the huge amount of volunteerism in how many meetings they went to. And Reverend Turpin, I second the motion for you as a chaplain. He was very engaged during all of the meetings. And I think that's a great motion, so I will second that. I am at many events throughout the county. And I can tell you, since this new sheriff has taken over, you see him at almost every single one of them. If you don't see him there, it's because you got there after he did, as well as many of the deputies, the captains, the undersheriff. They are very involved in this community. And I think Green County as a whole, absolutely the luckiest county around with our sheriff's department. Thank you.
That's all I have for people who called in ahead of time to speak tonight. Tom Hobart, he is not. He is not, okay. That's what we have to speak. I don't know if anybody have anything additional that we need to go over. Anything you want us to change? Do you want to, any of the committee members that may want to have anything they need to say or respond? I don't want to put anybody on the spot. That's not my intent at all.
It's Jeff Friedman.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how are you? I just wanted to follow up on something that I don't remember which speaker was saying about not reaching into the community and hearing from people. Kai, Katie, myself did have a meeting with folks from the Black community to try to get some feedback from them. It was a very difficult process to make happen. You know, there is a lot of I guess you'd call it reticence in that community to speak, even in an environment that, you know, didn't include government officials or police officers. We purposely tried not to do that. We did invite some other members of the committee who were not involved with either government office or police officers, but they just weren't able to make that meeting. I did say we got a lot of good feedback from the group that was there, and also numerous ones of us on the committee were contacted by members of the public directly, and we did engage them. I never heard from the folks who talked tonight, but you know, some of their concerns, many of their concerns we did hear, and I do only, you know, I would agree with them and echo on one subject. I think this should be an ongoing process. We certainly need to continue to be proactive to make sure that we never have a problem. And I would also say, though, that I would ask them to look over the report again, the first two speakers. Some of the things that they said that we didn't do, we actually did do and are mentioned in the report. And I believe the minutes from our meetings are public record. Is that true, Sean? I might, you know, go over our meeting minutes. We did cover a lot of ground that, you know, was said that we didn't. And I'm not trying to defend the committee's actions here, but you know, some of the things need to be clarified. So I don't want to take up too much more time other than to say you know, I support some of the things that Kai has been mentioning through the meetings and in his emails of late. And I think it's important that we have an ongoing process here. But you know, these recommendations are a start. It was a very compressed timeline, but it was compressed by the governor's office. And so if we're going to make quantitative and qualitative progress, it takes time, and it's not going to be done in a 6-month period. So I thank the legislature for the consideration of this and the other members of the committee, and certainly am happy to continue listening to members of the community and seeing what we can do to keep moving forward. So.
Thanks, Jeff.
I would just also add that a lot of the recommendations that came out of that committee or out of that meeting were already in the draft report. So it wasn't like we weren't trying to address certain things. It's just hear everyone that had talked to us and did some things that were brought up. So it wasn't, they were already either in it or they were added after. So.
Ellen?
Hi. I would just like to address a point that speaks to report again, or the minutes, or watch the YouTube videos, which I have multiple times. I can actually cite what people said in those read everything.
Sean, we can't hear. We cannot hear her.
I don't know, they can't hear you from back there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, if she speaks into the mic.
Okay.
The mic's not on.
Yeah, it's not on.
TV.
Can you hear me? Okay. So I would just like to address the point that it seems to be brought up a lot. Again, why didn't we read the minutes, or we need to read the draft again, or there's a lot of information. And I can assure you, I have read the minutes, I have read the report. I can cite what people said in the minutes, and I said, I believe Reverend Turpin can attest to that with the conversations that I had with him. Responses that I have had and things that I was told do not convey transparency. If those meetings took place with the community and their testimonials or feedback, where is it? I was told I'm not allowed to see anything. Why can't we see that feedback? What was the feedback that was collected and how was it incorporated in the report? That's part of the transparency process. What I'm saying doesn't mean, again, that anyone didn't work hard or didn't try or that there wasn't some progress made. But the fact is that this wasn't held correctly. Posting it on a website when nobody knows to look there, a lot of people don't know to look there, is not adequate notification. These are things that we have a problem with, that we've been suggesting to fix for a long time, and we don't get responses. So I have an email thread that I have saved without appropriate response, going back to the beginning of February, adjusting a lot of these things. So I would like to invite you to call me directly, and I'm happy to discuss these points in detail, but I understand we each have a time limitation to talk tonight, and it's time of last minute. So again, here is another open invitation for the committee and the legislative members to reach out to me directly and speak with me on the phone, to meet and speak with our group and members of our group, that we think that will be helpful for this process to make sure that there are certain recommendations in this draft that are also included that are not currently included. So I appreciate you listening again. Thank you.
Yeah, that the committee was pretty much given the levy to do what they thought they needed to do to accomplish the task that they were given. Having a meeting within the community, I think, was part of the plan. That wouldn't necessarily be a meeting of the police reform committee. But as Katie said, the ideas that were taken from those separate meetings were brought back to the full committee. A lot of people don't want to go on the record as having met with anyone. They don't want their name out there. Another speaker said it's sometimes you can't bring them or tell them that if you say something, it's going to go public. They don't want that. So I think that the committee did what they needed to do to get through what they had to get to.
Now, I have a question. This is due, the governor has to have this on his desk by April. But does that mean that this is the end all and be all of police reform in Greene County? Does that mean that we can't make any changes even after it's on the governor's desk? I mean, this can be a continuation, something that we keep doing.
It is, and it's actually one of the recommendations that's there is to keep this dialogue open.
So in the essence of time and the governor threatening like he likes to do to everybody and cutting us off, this can be put on his desk, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be any more change in Greene County. This is it, it's written in stone and that's the end of it. So we can keep coming back to other things, but in the essence of time, we need to get something on the governor's desk.
Correct, and that's also part of what that community advocate committee is for. People who don't want to go to the sheriff and say, hey, why don't you look at this? They can come to that committee. They can bring their idea to that committee, and then the committee goes to the sheriff or to the legislature, whether it's policy for us or policy for him. It's kind of that's a touchy subject with the way this was rolled out. The sheriff, as opposed to a police chief, the sheriff's an constitutionally elected position. So he has his own responsibilities, whereas an appointed or a hired police chief may not. He has a different responsibility and a different role. So that was kind of was kind of the plan in bringing everyone else together. The sheriff really has a little bit different responsibility than everybody else does here. So it's a little more difficult process to go through some of these. Some of these will be policy decisions that the legislature has control over. Other things are going to be policy decisions that we don't control. The sheriff's office controls, or further up the chain actually controls. But I think that what came out of this was a real good start, and does specify a continuation of this process and an avenue for people who maybe aren't comfortable discussing it for getting those ideas forward from here on out. Would you agree, Chair? Anybody else from the committee? Nobody else
Sean?
on the record. Who's that?
Reverend Turpin?
Evan, go ahead.
I wanted to, just for a reminder's sake, this committee was obligated to have 2 meetings across all the counties. They had to have 2 meetings in the public eye. This committee, our committee, had 3 meetings. So we had one above what was asked for us to do. And the second thing is, we have to honor how people felt during this COVID-19. There are men and women who is home, haven't seen their grandchildren, barely seen their children if they're grown, could not travel, felt very afraid to even go to the store, and to really try to get someone to come out during a COVID-19 pandemic. I thought we had good numbers, considering the time for which the governor called this legislator to get this program moving. We had a bigger fight on our hands, and it's called COVID-19. We had many people at those meetings. The largest group that I've sat with in a year has been those meetings that we've had. I have not been in a meeting where more people than the meetings than we had at the high school. And I think that was great for this COVID pandemic that we're living in. We can't look past that and say, okay, everybody should have came out. Maybe more people would have come out if it wasn't for the alarm of a pandemic. I've never lived in a pandemic before. This is my first time. So excuse me if I'm not up to par on it, but I respect, as a pastor of our community, as well as to our church members, I respect anyone's feelings on this pandemic. If folks wanted to stay home, I honor that. If they wanted to wear 2 masks, I honor that. If they wanted to wear a shield and gloves, I honor that. And if they wanted to stay home and actually say, I will not risk catching COVID-19 virus to come out in a board meeting, I honor that. And I applaud the committee and those who came out, who said, I'll do it for my committee, for my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Hi, I'd love to say something. This is Rabbi Zoe Bizak. So I wanted to say, when I was asked to be on this committee, I had not met our sheriff. And I really received quite an education, for which I want to thank all the organizers and all the people that came to present to us, and the sheriff, the undersheriff, the captain, the deputies that came, the police captains, people from the mental health organizations that came. People really gave a lot of time and effort and care to this. And I was pretty sure that no matter what we came up with, of course there would be more. There's always more. There's always more to learn. There's always more space to grow. There's always deeper connections to be made. There's always greater support to give. But I would say what I learned, if I could say the one thing that I really learned being on this committee, was that our sheriff and our sheriff's department is quite open-minded and open to not only interacting with the community that they already do, but interacting more and meeting more people, willing to go anywhere. That was really made clear. So I think the best thing about this committee is that it created relationships and understanding and a learning for myself, and I suspect for some other people on the committee, to understand better, you know, what our sheriff and everyone in the sheriff's department actually does. And it gives me a lot of faith in the possibilities going forward, you know, for all the other ways that, excuse me, there are to connect. And so I just want to say to the people that are worried that is this the end, or did we address everything? I don't think we could have addressed everything. We tried to, and I don't say this in a defensive way, we tried to address what we understood the governor had asked us, knowing, of course, any one person's job, there's so many other aspects that one could discuss. So I really want to say that I honor everybody that's gotten up to speak and that you're taking the time to bring these questions. And I think we have a sheriff and a department that are really here to address whatever is brought to them in a kind and compassionate and open-minded way. And for that, I feel very grateful.
Thank you. And I will say, you know, all the people that were selected on this committee are members who are actively involved within their communities. And just because this committee's actions are finished, they're still out there every day in their communities. They're going to take concerns as they hear them, and I will guarantee Sean will get a phone call if they have a concern. I don't see them not making those concerns known, given what they've just gone through. So I think that's still going to come from their communities, and that's quite frankly why they were selected from the various groups that they were. They are all over the county. They are a very diverse group. Anything else from the committee? Our district attorney or our public defender, but they were both part of this as well. That's the other side of the criminal justice system that we have here. I think they were able to provide some pretty good insight as to how things actually work, not just looking at them as words on paper, but how they actually work within our system. I think they were a good addition to that committee as well.
You want to say something, Joe, or you want me to go first?
I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to, but you can.
No, I was planning on saying something. I usually defer to the DA. I usually go second. So
Go ahead, I'll go second.
I don't want to jump.
Go ahead. Well, I'll just say a couple of words. I just want to express that the people on this committee have come to know, and I believe that they are people of the highest ethical standards. So when I heard the first speaker express her opinion, she had some criticism, and that's great. Criticism breeds progress. I think we all listen, we respect what's being said, but I think at the end of her statement, she indicated something to the effect that the plan would be unethical. And that concerns me to make a statement like that. We've all worked very hard. We've listened, taken in a lot of input, put together this plan, and then we present it for further input. The term unethical is not a term to be tossed around lightly. And I just think that was inappropriate.
And well, let me start over. I would like to say that this committee did put a lot of time and effort into this. And I welcome the comments of the people who did speak. I know that it's easy I find, to poke holes and to tear something apart rather than to put something whole together, especially from scratch. And that's what we tried to do. May not be perfect. We say it's a work in progress, but I think we've had a cross-section of the community speak. I know Mr. Nash Weber was at several of our meetings. We try to give every avenue out there to get people to speak up, and we had some writings come to us directly. I think there's some emails. We tried to sort it. So we try to open it up, and was it enough? We did the best we could do. So I'd like to think that we really did put our whole heart into this. It was a committee decision. Some of the committee members may not agree with some of the things that we did, but we did try to do what we think is best, and we were trying to be transparent about it all. And as we said, that's why we left it open. So it's hopefully a work in progress, and that's all we're trying to do, is make it something that make our community a better and safer place. Although I think it's a pretty safe place to live right now. So that's all. But I thank everyone for their help in getting us to this point, because it was quite a bit of work.
Thanks, Colby. Board members then, Warren, Sean, when would you need any potential amendments to what was drafted here? The resolution for next week.
I think with your existing legislative cycle, you would have 2 meetings next week, Monday and Wednesday. If you wanted more time, then our legislative cycle then would just have to be extended another week into March in order for us to make a final document and then get it to the governor's desk by the required for. That's what's really next Wednesday. So our agendas go out Friday typically. So if you can't move for that schedule, then we would then call for a special meeting to the following week. And remind you, you already have a special meeting on the 31st. In that window.
I think we can move within that schedule, even if there were amendments that are made here. Even with the concerns that were brought tonight, those are things that will be looked at as we go forward from this. If somebody had a amendment they wanted to make for the final draft that goes to the governor's office, when do you need it, by Friday?
Or from the floor Monday night, in the worst case.
Okay.
And we would take that from Monday night's committee meeting, and then Wednesday night is your full board.
Other than if somebody has a drastic concern that you feel we need to extend the timeline on, please call me or email me. And move it out a week or so. But if there's any other little smaller amendments that you want to see made changes to, bring them up and bring the resolution next week. Anything else?
I would extend my thanks to the committee. I must admit they were very, very committed. I don't think anybody hardly missed a meeting. They were there every night. They asked a lot of questions. They had a lot of debate. I think 25 recommendations that came from this committee. We as staff are watching a lot of other counties. A lot of other counties aren't even coming close to this effort. I've seen one-page reports and meetings that didn't begin until December or January. Once we got the committee rolling, we got them past that organizational session. Then they wanted to go into closed committee meetings to then try to debate everything. They worked their butts off. I absolutely respect their effort. And I think this product is a one of 25 recommendations. That's big. That's very big. As Reverend Turpin said, I think 2 weeks ago, you know, he didn't just want a report. He wanted the report that he could be proud of. Reverend, I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but that's your quote. And I think you should be proud of this report.
Anything else from any board members? I have a motion to close from legislator Len. Second from legislator Blumer. If we're opposed, thank you very much.